Have you ever just stumbled upon a pattern that seems to pop up everywhere in places that have absolutely nothing to do with each other? Well, today we're going to hunt for one of those. It's a kind of hidden thread that ties together the code in your phone, the way we think about ourselves, and even huge moments in history. It's a wild ride, so let's just dive right in. I know. It sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, right? What in the world could computer code, the US motto, and centuries of religious history possibly have in common? But stick with me here, because the answer, it tells us something really, really profound about how we build everything. So to start cracking this puzzle, we're going to begin in a place that might feel a little technical. But trust me, it's something you interact with a million times a day: the world of computer programming. And it all starts with one kind of strange question. Yeah, if you've ever tried to learn to code, this is one of the first weird things you hit. You and I, we count 1, 2, 3. But for a lot of computers, the first thing in a list isn't number 1, it's number 0. So why? Is it just to be difficult? Nope. It's actually our first major clue. Okay, so there's a name for this. It's called zero-based numbering. The first item gets the label 0. It's the 0th item. And this isn't just a quirky habit. It's totally fundamental to how computers organize information. So look at this. On the left, that's us. Apple is 1, banana is 2, cherry is 3. Simple. But on the right, you see the computer's logic. Apple is 0, banana is 1, cherry is 2. For a computer, the apple isn't the first item, it's the 0th. And this little shift in thinking, well, it unlocks everything. And here's why that matters so much. For a computer, 0 isn't just a placeholder. It's the origin. It's the starting line. Everything else is just a step away from that starting line. So 0 isn't nothing. It's actually the potential for everything. It's the point right before 1 even exists. Okay, so hold that idea of 0 as the origin in your head, because we're about to make a huge leap from the cold, hard logic of computers to the messy, complicated, and fascinating world of the human mind. All right, I know. This quote from the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan looks intense, but don't worry about the jargon. He's making a point that is shockingly similar to what programmers do. He's saying that before you can have a 1, a self, an identity, you first need a 0. So let's just break that down. Lacan's whole idea is that we aren't born as these solid, complete people. Our sense of me is actually built around a kind of emptiness, a central lack or a hole. And there's our pattern again. Just like with code, our identity, our personal 1, is born out of a fundamental 0. It's the empty space where all the things that make you can finally start to take shape. So, we've seen this 0 to 1 pattern in code and deep in our own psychology. But what happens when you zoom out and look at society? Well, it turns out this exact same drive to create a single 1 out of something more fundamental is not just personal, it's incredibly political. Just take a look at these two mottos. On one side, you've got the United States, a pluribus unum, which means out of many, one. And on the other, the European Union, united in diversity. They're talking about the exact same thing, just with slightly different words. You see what's going on here? The whole goal of these massive political projects is to take a bunch of different people, different states, different cultures, the many, and try to forge them into a single, unified thing, the one. It's our pattern playing out on a global scale. The many are like the foundational 0, and the goal is to create a 1 out of them. But here's the thing. This process doesn't always go smoothly. What happens when that carefully built 1 starts to crack and fall apart and goes back to being the many? Well, for a really powerful example, we just have to look at history. So for the first 1,000 years or so, the ideal of Christianity was to be one single universal church. But that unity just didn't hold. In 1054, you get the Great Schism, the first big split, and then bam, 1517, Martin Luther kicks off the Protestant Reformation, and that one unified church shatters into thousands of different pieces. And you can literally see it here. It's like a tree. What started as one single trunk splits into these huge branches, and those branches split again and again and again. It's the out of many one idea thrown into reverse. It's out of one many. It just goes to show how fragile these unified ones can really be. And that brings us to a really interesting and maybe a little unsettling question.
If a massive, powerful institution like that can fracture, if it can go from one back to many, couldn't the same be true for our own sense of self? So let's bring this pattern all the way home. Let's go from the grand scale of history right into the surprisingly crowded world that exists inside. Well, inside all of us.
There's this really powerful idea in psychology called internal family systems, or IFS for short. And its core idea is pretty mind-blowing. You are not one single person. Your mind is actually more like a family, full of different parts or little subpersonalities. And you know these guys, right? We've all got them. There's the part that worries about everything, the part that's a total overachiever, that little inner child, the really harsh inner critic. The list goes on. Each one has its own feelings, its own agenda. You're not a one, you're a many. So then what's the goal of things like therapy or just personal growth? It's not to crush these parts or get rid of them. The goal is to get them to listen to each other, to work together, to create a kind of harmony. In other words, healing is all about creating unity in diversity right inside your own head. It's about forging your own personal e pluribus unum. Okay, we've been all over the map, right? From computer code to psychoanalysis, politics, history, and all the way back into our own heads. So now, it's time. Let's pull all of these threads together. This is it. This is the pattern. Underneath everything we've looked at, there is this constant, recurring effort to create a single, unified one out of a more fundamental many or zero. It's in the way computers count, the way our identities form, the way nations are built, and even the way we heal ourselves. It's everywhere. And if you think this is just some weird human quirk, well, check this out. This idea suggests that this pattern, it isn't just in our heads or our societies. It might be written into the fabric of reality itself, right down to the structure of a single atom, the zero and the one, the void and the substance. And that really is the thought I want to leave you with. If this one simple pattern can connect computer code, our own consciousness, and massive historical conflicts, what else does it connect? What does it really mean that the universe and our own minds seem to be obsessed with this single act, the act of creating one out of many? It's definitely something worth thinking about.